Fergie. What a sight! Little groups of Germans and British extending almost the length of our front. Out of the darkness we could hear laughter and see lighted matches. A German lighting a Scotsman's cigarette, and vice versa, exchanging cigarettes and souvenirs. Where they couldn't talk the language, they were making themselves understood by signs, and everyone seemed to be getting on nicely. Here we were, laughing and chatting to men whom only a few hours before we were trying to kill. On Christmas morning, the Saxons had been shouting across in English, "Don't shoot. We don't want to fight today. We'll send you some beer." 3 of them began to roll a barrel that had been hoisted onto a parapet into the middle of no man's land. Things were getting a bit thick. So I climbed over the parapet and shouted in my best German for the opposing captain to appear. We met and formally saluted. He said, "You had better take the beer, we have lots." So I called up 2 men to bring the beer to our side. I didn't like to take their beer without giving something in exchange. Suddenly, I had a brainwave. We had lots of plum puddings. So I sent for one and formally presented it to him in exchange for the beer. He then called out, "Waiter!" And a German private whipped out 6 glasses and 2 bottles of beer, and with much bowing and saluting, we solemnly drank it amid cheers from both sides. We then all formally saluted and returned to our lines. Our men had sing-songs, ditto the enemy. held to bury our dead. Our padre arranged prayers and psalms, and an interpreter wrote them out in German. They were read first in English by our padre, and then in German by a boy who was studying for the ministry. It was an extraordinary and most wonderful sight. The Germans formed up on one side, the English on the other, the officers standing in front, every head bared. The roughly cleared space suggested to the more imaginative among them a football pitch. Kickabouts began, mostly with balls improvised from stuffed caps and other gear, the players oblivious of their greatcoats and boots. Christmas Day brought surprises. The English brought a soccer ball from their trenches, and pretty soon a lively game ensued. This developed into a regulation football match with caps casually laid out as goals. The frozen ground was no great matter. Das Spiel endete 3-2 für Fritz. The game ended 3-2 for Fritz. How marvelously wonderful, and yet how strange it was. The English officers felt the same way about it. This Christmas, the holiday of love, managed to bring mortal enemies together as friends for a time. Along the French line, Capitaine Rimbaud sang carols with his lieutenants. He gathered his men together in the middle of a wood, where they lit their few precious candles, keeping them low, since the Germans were not far away. Capitaine Rimbaud recalled, "They are all there around me, my brave soldiers. They have their drinking mugs in their hands, filled with the good wine of the Meuse. And I speak to them. I speak to them of Christmas, of the war, of their homes, of their hopes. There is no longer any difference of age or rank. There is only a brother speaking to his brothers, wishing them a good and gallant Christmas. At midnight, they held a mass in the trenches, not 50 meters from the boat. We had fixed up a sort of makeshift altar with a missal and an altar cloth from a nearby ruined village. The men sang carols from their childhoods, carols of peace and gentleness, which, coming from those rough lips, sounded more like songs of strife and battle. Throughout the ceremony, the Boche, Bavarian Catholics, did not fire. Men were frequently struck by the sheer incongruity of what they were doing. You'll hardly credit this, but it is the truth, wrote Private Calder of the 6th Gordons. Fancy shooting the Germans and then going over to wish them a Merry Christmas. I don't think it's happened in the world's history before. You would have thought that peace had been declared. The whole thing is extraordinary, wrote Captain Arms of the North Staffs, as he continued the letter he had begun the previous night. The men were all so natural and friendly. Just you think, wrote Oswald Tilley of the London Rifle Brigade to his parents, that while you were eating your turkey, etc., I was out talking and shaking hands with the very men I'd been trying to kill a few hours before. It was astounding. This experience has been the most practical demonstration I've ever seen of peace on earth